Alrighty, so it's a bit late, and I hope to get this video kind of done pretty quickly, but basically I've gotten my Pxeboot server to work using some special sauce DHCP commands, and I'll kind of explain how that works. So PXE, or Preboot Execution Environment, is a firmware trait that some NIC ROMs will have. You can boot into, basically you can boot and install an operating system over the network using a preboot execution environment. So here's kind of how it works. You've got your PXE clients there with the option ROM to request an address over the router, which is usually, in this case, is running dnsmasq. You've got a PXE server that runs nginx and TFTP. The TFTP is the more important of the two, and also it can respond, but generally the router will be directing PXE clients. So here's how it works. You get your PXE client, it starts up in the boot mode. It queries the router for DHCP options. There are many of them, but I'll go into one. The one it cares about is DHCP boot, which tells it where to go and what file name to get. So then with that information, it then goes to your PXE server and asks either TFTP or nginx for that file. In my case, I can either pull the firmware, a new firmware called IPXE, it's an open source firmware, and load that onto the PXE client, or if the PXE client is already IPXE, then it'll request a script from nginx. So once it has the script, it'll pull the necessary files from my my nginx instance, and from there it'll load the operating system for installs, troubleshooting, etc., etc. So let's kind of give you an idea how that works. So this is all code that I can share with y'all that makes it actually work on the router side. These are all dnsmasq commands. Over here I've got two VMs. This is BIOS and UEFI firmwares respectively. So I'm going to go ahead and start those. I know they work, so we're just going to go ahead and start them, and I'll show you what that does. It'll start. Looks like my connection's lost here, so it's not actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. Let me fix that real quick. Sorry about that, I lost my connection to my Spice visual server here. So now you can see it's booting from IPXE, from the option ROM, it's doing all that. That's good. Let's go start up some actual physical hardware though, and to do that I'm going to need to be able to see it, so you're going to come through my dirty apartment, and while I clean here, turning the lights on, excuse the mess. So we're going to do some fun. We're going to use this old tower here that I've got set up already for it. And power it on. It's already configured to boot from Pxeboot, so I'm running it off of a power line adapter here, so that'll connect to my network over here. And just for shits and giggles, we'll actually fire up this ThinkPad here too, see if it works. Give me just a second. So I'll just power that on and see what it comes up with. So anyways, that's still going. The option ROM is pulling. You'll notice this is not IPXE, but it does load IPXE here. It's pulling it up, then it pulls up IPXE. Bam! There you go. So this is the operating system menu of IPXE. So I wrote this menu. We can actually deploy Linux, Windows, and Mac OS operating systems. I can load a recovery image, even load mem testing tools, or like really any tool that I need to quickly diagnose an issue. So we're going to go ahead and load a Linux operating system just to test with. I'm going to load server, a Fedora server. It's the only one I've configured. But look at that, the ThinkPad actually worked as well. So on this one, for shits and giggles, I'll load the workstation instance. So it's going to pull that image and download it. You can see this one's already doing its thing over the network. There's no storage device in this. It's operating purely off the RAM. And so it won't touch the hard drive until I tell it to. Let's go check on those VMs. Hi, Lucy. So the VMs have started. This is the BIOS again. This is the UEFI. BIOS is complete. Let's go ahead and load. Just for fun, we'll pull. Actually, let me show you a recovery image. I've got Ultimate Boot and Higher Ends Boot CD. These are both over the network. I hit the enter, and there it is. I can see all kinds of fun stuff. Let's look at hardware detection tool. Why not? There it is. I can pull up the processor, which it knows about my emulated processor, all that fun stuff. So we'll keep going there. This guy is still starting, but once it starts, then, oh, it actually didn't. Huh. Interesting. Well, I will troubleshoot that in a minute. Let's take a look at our our server instance. You can see it's pulled up the init RD and the kernel config. It's pulling the squashfs right now, which is just the file system that runs on the RAM as root for all the install stuff. How about this guy? How are you doing? I see. So this is a 32-bit system, and I'm using an x86 64 architecture image, so that was my bad, but you can see it works. I can power this down. Oh, it didn't do it. And let it do its thing, but this guy should work once it starts, so we'll wait for that. Interesting. Okay. And I'll go ahead and speed up this for us. I'm still waiting for it, so well, I guess we could wait a little longer, but really, I mean, you get the point. It loads the entire BIOS, the entire operating system from the network, in this case my power line adapter, over there to wherever my power line adapter is, connected to the router. And I can install and run operating systems straight from the network as necessary. So it's really nice. And that's what I've done.